Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Conversations. I am so happy and grateful to be here with my beautiful friend and guest today, Nadi Hanna. Nadi is a yoga teacher, a sacred geometry expert, a Reiki master, and a transition specialist who is serving our planet right now, helping humanity to adjust and transition to this great awakening, this movement into unity consciousness. So Nadi and I are going to chat today. Thank you so much, Nadi, for coming and being here.
I'm so excited to be here. I always love our chats. Very, very activating. I should have cleared the rest of my afternoon, actually. I did not. We'll see how this goes. We'll try. We'll ask them to keep us grounded in this.
Right? Yes.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So today's conversation is all about the Arcturians. The first cosmic conversations that we had, we briefly touched on them lightly. And then I felt in my heart that I wanted to go back to the Arcturians again. The Arcturians is what, we originally brought us together in our friendship. And so it feels good to devote a whole segment into just our friends. The A's, I've been calling them. So yeah, we're just going to kind of go with the flow and dive. And basically we set the intention before starting the recording that we felt like they had some messages to share through us. So really we're attempting to be vessels for them in this conversation. Did I say everything about our intention?
Yeah, I think that's solid. I think we can't go wrong.
No,
like great, we've got an intention, but it's it's already done. It's been wonderful.
Yes. So who are these Arcturians, Nadi, for someone who's just joining us and who's never heard of them before, or maybe just like a smidge? They've heard a smidge, but they don't know a lot. Can you give a broad overview? Who are these Arcturian beings?
Yeah. I think the best that we can do is broad, right? Because they're vast and varied, and it's basically an advanced civilization from the star system Arcturus, but that captures very little. I mean, if you think about like if you think about how many different races we have on this planet, it's kind of like that. There's so many races within the Arcturian civilization, right? So we can kind of give an overview and say, oh, it's an advanced civilization from the star system Arcturus, but that is so broad. And so they are here, they are ever present. They are fifth dimensional and higher beings, fifth, sixth, seventh, and up till 12th I've worked with. And what that means is that they vibrate at a faster frequency, right? And so because their consciousness is evolved, and they don't have physical density. They have physical form. I actually never see them in physical form, but people talk about them having physical form, but it's more etheric. It's not dense and like what seems like material in our world. They rarely come to the third dimension. It's very hard for them. It's very dense. And the concern is they would get a little bit trapped if they lowered their frequency to be here. And so mostly they communicate with us telepathically, really primarily telepathically. And so, when we have conversations like this and we're connecting with them, we are opening the channels to receive their higher intelligence. And that helps us be transition specialists, and it helps us to serve the evolution that we're, this wild ride humanity is on right now, and we call them an advanced civilization because they are essentially us, but millions of years ahead of us and progressed. And so they have lots of information that they could share with us. We also call them advanced because they're incredibly technologically sophisticated beings. They know how to navigate our psychology in a supportive, benevolent way. They're here to help us, open in these, like, kind of crack our psychic abilities open.
Mm.
They're here to help us remember our multidimensionality. They have starships. They have incredible technology that's kind of top of the chain in the universe. So, you could refer to them as advanced for lots of different reasons. And I hope that gives a little bit of an overview, but they are one of the benevolent races who are related to humanity that are here to help us at this time. They're here more than they have been in the past, but they're always present if we want to connect, right? They're like right here.
Right here.
They're right here. They're like sitting next to me on the couch. Like, this is fun. They're talking about us,
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always tricky to give a synopsis, but hopefully that touches on some of the things. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. So the little bit that I know, I recently learned that they're 37 light years away from Earth. And I thought, well, how do I conceptualize light years? What is exactly that? Do you know anything about light years and how we can put that into perspective, how far away their star is from us physically?
I did. I think it's the distance. You know what? I'm not going to make a claim because I'll just look silly. But the cool thing that I learned is that what 37 light years away translates for us as, we're looking into the past. When we see that star, it's 37 years ago for them, years, because they don't have time. But in our way, we're looking into the past. That star has already blinked like that 37 years ago.
That's amazing.
Isn't that cool? That's how it translates for us. Like someone was saying recently, when you look into the night sky, you're looking into the past because everything takes time to get to us. Isn't that cool?
It just gives me the chills.
Yeah, that was a new spin for me too, right? Because when the sun sets, it's already set 8 minutes. We know that when we are seeing it 8 minutes after it's already set, because that's the distance, that's the time it takes for us to see the sun. So when we're seeing the sunset, we're seeing the past. Isn't that amazing?
It just puts everything into perspective.
It does. I learned that the other day. Yeah.
So Nadi, how did you originally get involved with the Arcturians? Could you give me like an overview of the beginning of your journey and how that all transpired?
I will. And I want to hear that from you too. Like, this is where we got to go, right? Because there's so many ways that they can show up, and I think it's so good to hear the different ways. So I think so what I would say is that in 2010, I kind of took a leap of faith and I left a regularly, like an understandable life of a 9-to-5 and a profession and a partnership and everything. And just took a leap of faith into a more integrated life. And when I did that, I opened to my true potential. And in that opening, crop circles came to me, right? That was one of the first activations. And I later learned that Arcturians are primarily responsible for crop circles. And I know that is a whole separate conversation. There are genuine crop circles and there are false, fake crop circles. So it is a whole conversation. I don't go into the what's called the disinformation campaign. I don't go into the false side of the crop circles. I simply believe that they are communication from the Arcturians. So I didn't know that at the time. And 2010, I had an activation. I tuned into them and then it went dormant, right? And then 2019, I had an encounter with a dimensional being here on this planet. Boy, I start to sound far out. And I start to sound extraordinary.
Sister, you go as extraordinary out as you want.
Okay. All right. So 2019, activation with an interdimensional being who basically said, you're the commander of an armada somewhere. You need to get in touch with your origins, go past the crop circles into who makes the crop circles. And so that's
Uh,
So that initiated my contact with the Arcturians,
was
that piece.
that,
But
were you doing a yoga session when that happened?
no,
No.
that was just a straight up encounter at a conference with this individual. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and I just don't want to say his name because it's a long story. It's a very high profile situation. So anyway, unbeknownst to me, that really opened a door to my connection with the Arcturians. And so start trying to stay on track. Sorry. So started working with a friend of mine who directly channeled the Arcturians. And she would just inform, like every day we would have a check-in. She would be talking to me about they would be talking to me about interdimensional travel and guiding me as I developed with this guide that I had met with this individual. Like I had the Arcturians helping me develop my psychic capacity to travel with him. And so it was this whole relationship where I was having her channel direct information that I could then apply to my meditation, to my travel, to my projections. And that allowed me to connect with other aspects of myself in other galaxies, different in not necessarily incarnations, but we have different aspects of ourselves in many different places. And so he would take me to journey to find, to go on the ship and connect with my crew and to go to that galactic center where I was, some type of council member. And so the Arcturians helped me to train within that capacity with him. And that started happening 2 years ago. And then my relationship with the Arcturians shifted towards me being more in direct communication. But other channels have a way of receiving thought blocks and then translating words and conceptions. No concepts, right? My experience with them is far more of this like intuitive knowing. I don't get details. It's like I have information that I then have to translate and apply to my life. But I feel like it's been a journey of learning how the language that I speak and the language that they speak. Oh man, that was just all over the place. It's tricky to talk about because it really isn't linear. And so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, while I was listening to you, I actually felt that I was struggling at a couple points to logically grasp what you were saying, even though it's not like it was difficult information for me to understand, but it was because when we're in this vibration of the Arcturians, I get so spacey and so like everything is kind of dissolving. The computer screen is dissolving. There's some really interesting phenomena happening outside my window right now. I don't know if you can hear it. Can you hear this loud booming sound?
No.
It started as soon as you were talking. It's somebody like their bass is so loud and I'm like, okay, but that's somehow connected to what we're talking about. And but yeah, like linearity just kind of falls apart, which the rational brain goes with linearity. So
okay. So they do not abide by a sense of time. Time is a third dimensional construct or, fourth dimension, but it's unique to us and it binds us and it limits us. And I have antagonistic relationship with time. And so, so when I try to say, oh, here was an activation, but then it was related to an interdimensional being who then is traveling in the galaxy with me, it feels nearly impossible to try to be sequential in that. And so it's a struggle and there's a lot of energy that starts up when we start talking about them. So yeah.
Well, and I think that what we're doing with our work with the higher beings is we're helping other people drop those linearity constructs and time and being so wedded to clocks and calendars and such. So it's like, I think that almost, I feel that the antagonism that you talk about, which I share as well, it's almost like ingrained into us for a purpose, for a reason. It's like, yeah, it annoys us because we don't really want to be in that as much. So we're just like a bit repelled by time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's okay.
It's so counterintuitive. It's so counterintuitive. And I know the last time you and I got together to talk about the Arcturians, it was within the context of the time intensive and, Arcturian time intensive, and talking about time collapsing and how it's really malleable. So that's one of the things that they really help us with, is to realize how malleable the construct is and how powerful we are in our ability to manipulate it. Like, that's
Absolutely.
part of what they're trying to support us with understanding, is we are so powerful, and this reality is very negotiable.
Well put.
Yeah.
Well put.
Right.
And it's awesome being on the cusp of, I think you said in the beginning of our conversation, wild times or wild ride that humanity is on, because like, oh, I just lost my train of thought. That's so funny.
The wild ride of humanity, and it's negotiable.
Oh yeah,
And
thank you.
okay. Yeah.
So again, we're paving the way for that negotiability, because so many people are at this time locked into these very stagnant old paradigm ideas of, you can't, like, let's give an example of, you get a diagnosis from a doctor, that's it, final, end of story. Like, a doctor says you'll have this chronic illness for the rest of your life, and then you think, well, that's it, I'm doomed, right? But then
Right.
no. So there's so much room for flexibility in this reality.
Yeah. I mean, it all has to do with our thought programming, right? And choosing beliefs. And, like, you get a diagnosis from a Western medical professional, and then you can go watch some Bruce Lipton that talks about epigenetics and the fact that all of that is bullshit.
Yep.
And that it's, that we're not locked into paradigms, constructs, or belief systems. And that when you begin to challenge your beliefs, when you break down your thoughts, like literally thought by thought, and you look at the energetics of that thought, and you realize that you have the choice to think one thought or the other one, that's where you really become powerful. And that's how I've practiced, is, literally slowing down to, of choice by choice, does that thought make me feel good? Does that thought make me feel bad? Well, feeling good is more aligned with my natural state. So I'm going to keep choosing the thoughts that take me towards alignment. And then slowly and surely, we're far more powerful, and can look, if someone gives us a diagnosis, and say, that's your external reality.
Yep.
I'm going to, tap into my own wisdom and know how to either heal or move accordingly. And I don't need your pharmacology.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Right. So really shifting back to an empowered position. And I think, just bringing that to the Arcturians and how they've helped, I'm trying to connect it with how they've helped with that process. And I think that the way I would say that, even though you're not asking that question specifically, I'm
I was
trying to tie
about
it
to
in,
ask.
is right. So it has to do, there's a piece that is larger collective consciousness shifting, right? And how they can influence on broad scales in terms of supportive energies that are coming in, that allow, boy, these are big concepts. As the human, collective conscious shifts, right? We started in 1986 with the harmonic convergence, and there's been this slow opening in consciousness where we have come on board with energetic practices, Reiki and yoga, and the significance of balance within ourselves, and integration, and the fact that we are so much more. Like, we are energetic beings, we are electromagnetic beings. And so these expanded understandings are, oh man, this is big stuff to try and conceptualize. So I'm going to just ask for help, right? We'll just tune in and say, how would it be best to say this, in terms of, how have the Arcturians influenced human consciousness and our ability to choose positive belief systems, right? it's this thing where I just know, and it's really tricky to translate. Um, it has to do with our receptivity,
Hmm.
and our ability to open to what's always been there, and, 100th Bunky and all of that, when, one by one, when we choose to connect with, um, how much more there is to this reality, the influence and the ripples of that are so profound. Back in the 80s, you had one or two pioneer channelers who were tapped in and receiving the information, and then it just started disseminating slowly but surely. And
Yeah.
the crop circle phenomenon started in 1990, and that's the great place to do it, is the Arcturians being responsible for the crop circles. It's this geometric encoding, right? They're activation codes that are happening. They're sending these, beacons of consciousness, and if you tune into them, it's going to activate your consciousness. So the crop circles are one way that the Arcturians have literally been coming in for 30 years and impacting our psyche, right? And sacred geometry too. When you start to study these, the universal patterns, the universal math, you start to activate your other capacities, right? The other aspects of yourself.
Absolutely.
Did we find it?
Yeah. While you were tuning into them, I was noticing one of the images right over your head of a triangle. It's green.
Oh, that one? Yeah, this one.
Yeah. And I was just feeling like how their use of images help to awaken us. And it feels to me like it's a deep right brain kind of awakening. It's the creativity. It's the below the logical thinking. It's this like primal, and even it's like a force that blows apart, I think, our humanity. It helps us to remember, like, oh, we haven't always been human. We've been other things. We've been many things. So it's, and the image does that maybe more powerfully than words can, because it cuts through all the extra.
Yeah, the construct. It just breaks down the constructs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, boom. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's part of what makes them advanced, is they give us just enough that can make it in through the cracks. And it is symbols and it is patterns that can access the 95% of the subconscious mind that rules our reality, right? 5% of our brain is our waking consciousness. 95% where all the programming is. That's what they access, right? And so exactly what you're saying, they're tapping in beyond our waking consciousness, and that's a level of sophistication that comes from an advanced civilization who knows how to work with a more primitive species. That's what we are. We are primitive, in my humble opinion, and I don't think that's such a stretch. There's, we torture and kill things here. So yes, they find their way, and that would be, slow and steady chipping away at the confinements of our construct. And it encourages us to start challenging, to start, here's these images in a field. Gosh, were those made by men with ropes and boards, or is it possible that we're not alone in the universe, right? So challenging that archaic belief system, and then also challenging incarnation and reincarnation. And right, do you think we die? No, we're eternal beings. And so all of this starts to break us open to higher states of consciousness, and then we expand, and then we ripple out, and hopefully humanity expands or doesn't make it, right? But this one in particular, that's the sigil of my ship, my armada. That's the, like on Star Trek, so that one was deeply profound experience of like, oh, that's what that is. So
cool.
I was obsessed with it for a while, and I started drawing it on all my clothing in sparkle glue.
Of course.
I know we did a crop circle table at a metaphysical booth, and I had to like beam out the whole subconscious deconstruction, right? I had to like imprint people, because it's all it takes is if you see them. You just have to see them, and then they work in such a sophisticated way. They're encoded activations. And so anyway, that, every time I hear myself talk, I just sound so far out. But that's the sigil for my ship. I really do believe that the crop circles and various other phenomenon that started emerging in the 80s and 90s has just been the slow and steady shift. And then we start to embrace channeling, the law of one, and how the information paves the way for more and more and more. And slowly but surely, hopefully, so all of that. And then I wanted to get back to how you first worked with the Arcturians. Like, what was your experience like?
Yeah. Well,
you try.
You're like, how to string a narrative out of that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny because I'm not 100% sure, but I think the beginning was just hearing other teachers talk about the Arcturians on YouTube. And then there's this one day where I was listening to a teacher talk about some of the quirks of like people who have incarnated as a human, but they've had Arcturian other incarnations, and they all have these like list of things in common, and every single thing was like true. It was like 10 things, and I was like, what the? And it was like really, some of them were just kind of funny. It was like, oh, are you constantly freezing cold? Like, I was like, oh yeah. And so that was fascinating.
Like, I would love to see that checklist, right? Like, are you constantly cold? You might be an Arcturian.
They're like, you should definitely move to a warmer climate. I'm like, I'm working on it. But that was interesting. And then, so it started like, I started going, and then you reached out to me. So this was very recent. This was in the winter. And you said, hey, I like your podcast. Let's do something. I said, cool. And then I was speaking with a really good friend, a soul sister, on the day that we were going to have our interview, in the morning before. And I said, oh, I'm talking to this woman, and she's like, has all these Arcturian connections. And she said, oh my gosh, she said, I think, Arcturians are the beings that I'm most connected to when I'm in Ohio, which is where we are right now. She's like, they just come to me, and we started talking about it. I started feeling like kind of dizzy and kind of like, whoa, what? And then we had our conversation, and then you recommended this book to me.
Oh, they look the same. Mine looks just like that.
With little stickies, the Post-its.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. So, and it's definitely one of the most activating books I've ever read in my life. I'm not done with it
yet.
I don't want it to end. So I'm like reading it really slowly.
Well, it doesn't end. It doesn't end. That's the thing, is even if you finish it, it's like that when you use a book like the Tarot, and you pick it up and it's something, it doesn't seem like you've read it before. It's really interesting. It's just like a vortex of guidance from the A's,
Yes.
It's amazing. That book is amazing. It keeps going. So don't worry about finishing it.
Oh, it makes so many things make sense to me. And so when I started reading it, I instantly started channeling them. And it was just really such a calming experience and comforting. And I started working with them in dream time. And that actually leads me into what happened last night. I want to share my story, and then I want you to share your story about what happened.
Yeah.
So I was feeling excited about our upcoming conversation, and then also working through some personal issues that came up, personal issues, quote unquote, scary shadow work shit that got triggered. Basically, like, I've had like a cyber bully for like 5 years, and it's
Oh
gotten
crap.
worse. And now the cyber bully is attacking my students, and I'm getting
Oh
like,
no.
anyway, I was getting really, she actually managed to finally get me angry. It took 5 years.
Mhm.
Um, but I got really triggered. I, like kind of mama hen. I was like, don't you mess with my people. You can mess with
Yeah.
me. You can say whatever you want about me. I don't even care, but like, don't
Right.
even do that. So I was triggered, and I was, I was in bed laying there, asking. So I asked the Arcturians, I said, what am I supposed to do in this situation? I said, all the tactics that I've worked before in dealing with this person has not worked. It's been 5 years. Like, it's getting worse. Like, what am I not seeing? And I was in bed, and I felt above me. My eyes were closed, and I felt and saw this giant bright light, so bright. And it was emanating in like a circular, um what it kind of felt like was that I was underneath the ship, and that they
Oh,
were,
nice.
yeah, and they were beaming this light into my third eye.
Uh-huh.
And it was like my whole body filled with this bright yellow goldenish light. It just like really quick
Oh
came
man.
into me. And then I just felt this total peace about everything with this troll
Oh,
person. I was like, it's going to be fine. And they showed
yeah.
me that what I need to do. Like in 2 seconds, it was just like boom, there it is. Like I got my answer. And then I was able to fall asleep. So it was it was a visceral experience. Like
Yeah.
it was a vision, but it also was very physical and tangible.
Totally.
So that was so comforting. I was like, oh, you guys are here. Thank you. You know, like, oh, because it
All
is
right.
nice to get
Yeah.
that extra, because I can feel them all the time in kind of like a vague way, but to get that like intense thing was just so cool. So
Oh, that is spectacular. It's very experiential a lot of times. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm just have I frozen?
you're
I'm
good.
adjusting myself. Okay, great. I've got you propped against rocks from Sedona.
Ooh,
um, total tangent. But I, lots of times very similarly, I'll ask like, okay, can you guys just be here? And it's like this flood of heart energy. And it's just, very similar to what you were experiencing. It's very, that's again part of the advanced knowing is how to work with our systems in a gentle,
yeah,
completely non-threatening, supportive way. They know, like any advanced civilization, even if it's, Zeta Reticuli that are not that much more ahead of us, or, any other kind of civilizations, like I said, we're just primitive. We are a primitive species. We have no telepathy here. And so their ability to navigate those worlds, we're vulnerable. And so, part of what the Arcturians are here to do in our solar system is to kick out nefarious influences, right? Like to kick out different civilizations that would be coming to harm us, right? And so they're also part of the process of getting rid of the reptilians, getting rid of those who are already here. But that is part of their stated mission is, defending against intrusion, right? Like they have to back off. It's all about free will. If we ask them to come in, they'll work individually, but they know how to work with our psyches so that when we say, are you here? They say yes. And we know it's,
yeah.
and we learn that language of how it is when they show up, and they guide us. And that experience that you had is called telepathic holography, right? When it's just an instant download and you just know it because they're communicating the information holographically. So we understand it like without needing to have the information unfold. It's instant.
Yep.
Because again, there's no time with them.
Yep.
Right? So so fascinating, right? But thank you though for sharing. I mean, they like that's a really practical application of how they move in the world with us.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've got this thing that's plagued me for 5 years, and now it's escalating. Like, what do I do, and what is this here for? And what I really appreciate, and the way my friend channels, and I think the way that I hear you speaking of them is that they don't just say, well, here's the energetics of it, details that are happening, is how you can solve that problem. They also primarily are reflecting and encouraging you to understand the soul lesson in it, and what
Yes.
is this here, why is this here that I'm learning this, why is this showing up? And
Yes.
so they're practical, but they're also like hold the perspective of what this is doing for your own evolution. They're just profound in their guidance, right?
Absolutely. And I felt grateful for the first time in 5 years for this being who's been my nemesis or whatever. And
Right.
it was like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is the lesson. This is why I needed to have this experience. And it's so profound. I almost want to hug this person if I ever see her. Like, just be like, wow, like you pushed me through your nastiness to reach this more evolved state of consciousness. So thank you very much. And I don't know how it's going to play out like from here. They gave me the guidance and I'm going to follow it. But it doesn't even matter. It's because I have peace
Right.
in myself now. So I'd love to hear about what happened to you last night when they came in.
Oh yeah. So I've gotten in the habit every night, I've talked about the fact that just right before you go to sleep is the time to really connect and, you know, um, imagine yourself, thought project yourself up onto the ships and, find a state of receptivity so that you can, go into the healing chambers that they have and, receive the support to balance the assault of this 3D reality, right? This is an assault to our systems. And so, lots of times I'll go up and I'll ask for healing. I'll just say, please, the highest healing and the highest practitioners, whatever I
Mhm.
need. And that's one fun thing. But lately I've asking, and this is sort of personal, but it's okay. It's helpful, I think. I've been asking for to, to have assistance in being who I came here to be, and really trying to peel back the layers that obstruct me knowing my true essence and knowing deep alignment and moving forward in this world of service from that place, right? Because I feel heartbroken about the constructs that feel in my way, time, money, and then looking around at this world and the insanity that's happening in terms of um, I don't know a good way to summarize it. You know, the polarization and the subjects, the topics, and the fears. I just look around at this place and I feel burdened. I don't know how to, I just want whatever is going to help me stay in a high vibrational place so that I can be of service while all of this, you know, fear is just
Mhm.
running rampant. So that's slightly tangential. I just want alignment. I just want alignment with who I know myself to be,
Mhm.
my essence. And so I woke up and the first realization I had was that, man, I fall asleep instantly. I feel like I fall asleep before I even hit the pillow, which is amazing. And I sleep for like 8 hours straight. And it's almost like an alarm. It's just 8 hours, you're up. And I feel like I've made some agreement. I got to go out and do my work and I have 8 hours and then I got to come back. It's almost like a work day. And that was interesting to reflect on, that I don't sit there and spin with thoughts. And so I believe that there's a relationship between me saying, I'd like to come up, and then like, okay, let's go. Right. So I was realizing that. But to get more to the point, I've been having an experience lately where it's not, I'll see somebody coming from their perspective, from their personality, behaving from their construct. And I'm able lately to say, wow, I've lived that life. I know that person. I know that perspective. I am that. I am, I have been, we are. And there's some part of me that is seeing far greater connectivity. and that where these boundaries of like physical body, they're kind of melting. And I'm much more able to dissolve any antagonism. Like I'm thinking of my one neighbor, right? And it's just been a strained relationship. And lately I just look at him and go, oh, I can see that manifestation of consciousness. I can see that embodied, and I can see that I've been that. And I have this interesting like moment of liberation just in recognizing that. And the words here are tricky. And the only thing I will say is that all of those new age isms about, unity consciousness and understanding that I've been you and you've been me and we all, I'm experiencing it firsthand. Man, that's what they're talking about. That's what that is. I'm starting to see the barriers dissolve. And this morning in my meditation, I was like, oh, that's me aligning with my true self. That's the manifestation of it. Right? That was cool. That was really cool to see. So I hope that makes sense. It's profound.
Okay, so this is so wild, Maddie.
Yeah.
I have been having a similar thing lately. So
Yeah.
I realized that just the simple act of looking at someone takes me into them. Yeah. And I actually was in the woods recently, and I was deep into my own kind of personal healing. I was like cleansing some stuff, and I just wanted like deep solitude. And I found this place in the forest that not many people were around, but then these people started coming towards me. And I was like, I can't even look at them, because if I look at them, I'm going to become them. And then it's going to kind of like take me out of what I'm doing here with myself. And so selfishly, I was like, I just didn't look at them.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying. Like, it's that feeling of actually tuning into the actual visceral experience of being everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what it is it's the application of In Lakesh. It's the application of that. And like I've always said, oh, In Lakesh, like I am another you, right? And conceptually, oh, that's a beautiful concept. But to really begin to experience it is like, oh, that's a different dimension. That is a new dimension of understanding. That's a new reality. And I had the exact same experience you did in the woods. Mine was just a little bit different. I was sitting there with my favorite tree, right? And all of a sudden, the bros show up with their loud metal music. And I had this moment of like, I can totally get where they're at. I can totally like, I have to deal with my own reality of it, but I had a compassion versus a like hostile response, So it's like it fosters compassion. And I'm just softening about people who are making decisions out of fear. I'm using the softening and like higher perspective. Like that's part of an opening, is just seeing the interconnectivity. Like that's part of, and what you're talking about is the same, only it's just like your version of it, right? But it feels like the same phenomenon. And it makes sense that we're both working with Arcturians, and that, all of these, beautiful civilizations are here helping us to expand in those ways. Yeah.
So what would you say to someone who wants to start connecting with the Arcturians for the first time? Any tips?
Right. That nighttime tip is the best, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the tips, right? Get that book.
Yeah, get the book
before you go to sleep.
David K. Miller, Connecting with the Arcturians.
Yeah. And also, it's packed away, but there's another book, and it's Tom Kenyon, Arcturian Anthology. And Tom Kenyon works with the Hathors, and the Arcturians and Hathors have a direct relationship, in that the Hathors are this pure love consciousness, no form, just energy. And the Arcturians asked them to come into our universe to provide stabilization for our galaxy, but for our universe, actually this quadrant of the universe. And so in order for that nebulous consciousness to come in, they needed the holding of the Arcturians. They needed the structure and the ships and the technology to hold them and almost create like that masculine feminine balance. So my point with that was Tom Kenyon channels the Hathors, and he also channels the Arcturians in that relationship. And he wrote a book called Arcturian Anthology. And that book changed my life. It was like, before I knew all of this in faith, before I just knew that I was going on an inner knowing that these beings are here. And I read that book, and it's like, it moved. Oh, we talked about this. It moved from faith to absolute certainty. Yeah. Like, oh, they're right here. Oh my God. Oh, without facts, like without any hesitation. And I will talk about them forever and not have a doubt or a question of their presence and existence here on this planet. So Tom Kenyon, Richard Miller, and then just play with the thought that they're around, play with talking to them, play with the assumption that they're here. And, you know, whether that's talking to them at night before you go to bed in that little liminal moments, or whether it's, you know, at one point going, oh, I bet there's Arcturians here, just for fun, just saying something like that. And then the way they talk to us are through synchronicities, right? And so to start to notice synchronicities of how extraordinary events are coming together, which suggests that there's a larger intelligence orchestrating our reality that we can tap into.
That's beautiful.
That seems like.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. It makes me feel so good. I think this is a good, well, we'll start to come to a close here. I know that we could talk for a billion years, but
Yeah.
I know you're teaching a class in a little while. So is there anything, if you tune into them, that they want to share?
All right, well, let's both do that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, mutual journey here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh. Do you want to go first?
Sure. There was no pause point, really. It was just like, everything's going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. Just this like deep knowing, you know, beyond having to reassure myself, but just that supportive, you know, larger perspective. And then what was coming through before we hopped on the call, because I tuned in, is that we're absolutely capable of this shift. Like sometimes I think star seeds and all of us, we look around and we go like, how is this going to happen? This feels impossible. Like, what did we come here for? I want to go home. Right. And so this message of we are absolutely capable of what's happening. That's been coming through lately. Yeah.
That's a wonderful message to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because sometimes it does feel like you're just staring at the abyss, like, you know, to know that we are capable. Yes. And I think too, like, just to add a little bit onto that, which is that if we connect with them and other higher dimensional beings, other guides, ascended masters, angels, whatever people resonate with, you know, that in itself is an initiation, which then takes people into that realm of possibility where it will be okay. Because I think there's other timelines where it's not going to be okay.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, it's like, what reality do you want to choose?
Exactly. Thought by thought, thought by thought.
Yep.
And it is diligent practice, just to add on that. It is disciplined, day to day, thought by thought, breath by breath, sometimes to choose some iteration of it's going to be okay. Right. Like, you know, and then you create it, just like you were saying. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hardcore practice sometimes.
They were sharing with me about the value of cooperation,
Mm,
and I heard stop being petty. So like we have these different, even within the spiritual communities, we have these different viewpoints about what's going on right now, and it's like, can we just um love? Can we love really? Like, can the actions that we take demonstrate love?
mm,
That's it. That's it.
mm,
And then cooperation together in that goal, then all the minutia will figure itself out.
mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right, right. They are, they are the embodiment of unity consciousness. They are one telepathically connected civilization. Right? There's all those different aspects and races within their culture, civilization. But part of another thing that makes them advanced is they are telepathically connected with each other throughout time and space. They've developed a spiritual mastery, spiritual, energetic, however you would call it. And so they are the embodiment of unity consciousness, and that requires love. And so what you're talking about, it's like that is one of their messages. They've found this beautiful partnership of heart and mind, that's they're in harmony. And so their message often is of love, and that, um, love is how things will be okay.
Collaborator, and hopefully I will see you in Sedona soon, because I will be there when you are there. So yay, and hopefully we can share some more conversations. Oh, you're muted.
Right. I was just saying, there you go, getting to your warmer climates.
I know.
Yeah. No, let's do a fun thing out on the rocks. Let's do another chat. That'd be really fun.
That'd
Yeah.
be so sweet. Cool.
Awesome. There. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Nadi, for joining me on Cosmic Conversations. And I love you oh so much. And blessings to you as you continue your work with the Arcturians.
And likewise, it's wonderful to be on the team with you. Ground team. Yeah.
Ground team.
Yeah. Thank you, Anya.
You're welcome. Blessings.